Hello, Scott here, and welcome to a new segment on my channel that I like to call It's Pronounced Zeen, not Zine. This is a new segment that I'm going to be doing off and on, where I'm going to take a deep dive into a lot of the role-playing game magazines, zines, and other periodicals from back in the day to try to see if we can pull out, what hidden treasures lie within, some of that old school wisdom, and more than likely probably see that a lot of perspectives that existed back in the day are pretty much identical to a lot of the perspectives and arguments that are currently going on within the hobby. So I'm kicking off this first episode of this with the oldest dragon magazine that I own. This is issue number 39. This is from July 1980. So let's dive in. So what we have here is, as I said, issue number 39. Inside this particular issue is going to have the Missile Mission, a top secret module for the top secret spy role-playing game that TSR had back in the day. Women as players and characters, so that should be interesting. Evil with a capital E, the Anti-Paladin, and then we also have a beautiful image here on the front cover. Let's see here. What does it look like? It's a bit convoluted, to say the least. But what do we have? We have, is that a warrior? Maybe a druid? I'm not so sure. But we have a lion here, which is touching its nose to some sort of dragon. Could be a gold dragon or a bronze dragon. It's hard to say. We have a woman up here riding it who seems to be shooting... I don't know, psychic power, some sort of magical power from her forehead. We have some bees flying in from out of the scene with rabbits and pigeons and a whole bunch of other things. So once we go inside, I'm sure it will tell us who the artist is and hopefully give a little bit of detail. So let's dive in. All right, inner cover, we have a advertisement for Alpartha. The miniature maker from back in the day, and these are depicting some old school metal miniatures here. And then on the side part on page 1, we have an advertisement for Iron Crown Enterprises, or ICE for those who know them intimately. This probably is dealing with the Rollmaster systems they're advertising here. Rollmaster being infamously known for its complexity and its many random tables. Okay, so inside we have a segment here called Cover to Cover. It may seem like an uncomplimentary thing to say about ourselves, but it does seem as though the dragon resembles an elephant trotting on thin ice. We can't help making a breakthrough with every step we take. So going through, so what it does, it seems to be touching base, giving a synopsis on the various things within this issue, which we'll take a look at on our own. Contents herein, as stated earlier, we have the Missile Mission, a top secret module by Mike Carr. Other features, try this for evil, the Anti-Paladin NPC. We have Women Want Equality and Why Not? Points to ponder. Next time, try a cleric. Bows, good hits and bad misses. Uniformity, conformity, or neither. My encounter with the aliens from beyond. What are the odds? Imperium research. IDDC number 2, the new rules, and the second fantastic adventure of Reginald Rennup. And then along with a variety of regular columns within. So, on the following page, we have Dragon Rumbles. This is by Jake Jaquet, where he seems, let's go ahead and just pick one out here that he's complaining about here. Snap, Crackle, Zap. The Dragon computes. Recently, we've acquired a TRS-80. Wow. Okay, so if you're not old enough to know what a TRS-80 is, definitely look it up. But they just acquired a new TSR-80 computer here at the Dragon. So at the at where Dragon is written and published. They just got a new computer back in 1980, prior to July, and it's the level 2 with 16K memory, a full 16K, and a 16K expansion interface, along with 2 floppy disk drives and a printer. In addition to using it in conjunction with Mark Harrell's Electric Eye column, we'll now be able to look at a few of the plethora of game programs now available on the commercial market and hopefully do some reviewing on our own. Please hold off on sending us your own homebrew programs for a bit yet. We'll have our hands full with what's on the market already, but electronic gaming is looming on the gaming horizon, and the Dragon is going to be ready for it. Wow. Okay, so yeah. So yes, this is definitely... Sorry, taking a little drink here. Most definitely 1980. And let's see here. Let's go ahead, and we'll go ahead. Oh, here's a mention of White Dwarf. So what are they saying? And by the way, as you probably know, Dragon Publishing is the sole North American agent for the White Dwarf magazine. I'll be doing some White Dwarfs for this segment here because I actually have a few White Dwarfs that are older than this one. So next segment I do for this, I'll probably do White Dwarf. Anyways, but do you know we are the agent for the Wargamer, published by Simulation Games in England? And we're proud to be in that role too. The Wargamer is going to give strategy and tactics a run for the money, at least in the quality of the game included in each issue. Physical quality of the game components is excellent, and the game design itself is always of the highest caliber. Check out a copy the next time you are in your favorite hobby store, and if they don't have it, tell them to talk to us. Hint, hint. All right, so going further, we have Out on a Limb. These look like these are letters to the editor. So not going to go through these all, but let's see if we can pick one out here. Okay, so very important question here. Why no RuneQuest? Dear editor, why is it that although you claim the Dragon is an impartial magazine, publishing articles on Third Reich, etc., besides D&D, wow, okay, you don't publish articles on Chaosium's RuneQuest? Is it because you're trying to cover up the fact that RuneQuest is the ultimate fantasy role-playing game, that RuneQuest's combat, magic, and promotion systems so outclass, sarcasm intended, that of AD&D's, not to mention RuneQuest's extensive coverage of each of the game gods, while AD&D devotes 2 lines to each? Well, I don't blame you. If RuneQuest got the coverage it deserves, you may lose a lot of money. Doug McKenzie, Guelph, Ontario, Canada. Wow. Doug's an asshole. Although I don't blame him. I mean, you know, this kind of falls in line with a lot of the hardcore RuneQuest fans. They have no problem defending that game to their death. I wonder if Doug McKenzie is just a pseudonym or a disguised name for Nick Brook. That sounds like something that Nick Brook would send to Dragon Magazine as a young child. So, anyways, they have an answer here for Mr. McKenzie. This is not the place, and I am not the person to address the issue of quality, completeness, realism of RuneQuest versus D&D or AD&D. But Mr. McKenzie's, and you know they wanted to put Mr. Asshole, but unfounded assumptions about the Dragon's publication policies do warrant some comment. Oh, well, they're being very diplomatic about this. We've said it before and we'll say it again. We can only print what our contributors send us, and the simple fact is that we don't receive manuscripts about RuneQuest. I can make an unfounded assumption of my own here and say that RuneQuest players don't like to or choose not to write articles about the game. An assumption which is probably close to the truth is that RQ enthusiasts view the Dragon as being so closely tied to D&D and AD&D that they assume we won't even give an article on RuneQuest a second glance. That is, in a word, wrong. We're proud of the fact that TD gives at least nominal coverage to virtually every aspect of the hobby of gaming. We concentrate on role-playing adventure games because that is the direction we have chosen to pursue. And within that sphere, we deal primarily with D&D and AD&D because those games are being bought, played by, and written by more people than any other similar games. If RuneQuest or Chivalry and Sorcery or Tunnels and Trolls or any other role-playing game ever surpasses D&D or AD&D in general appeal, the Dragon would not hesitate to shift its emphasis accordingly, provided, of course, that writers sent us manuscripts on those games. The dragon is not a mouthpiece for TSR hobbies. Okay. And any of the games the company produces, I mean, yeah, when it first was, there was a bit of tug and pull, between the editors, I should say, of Dragon Magazine and TSR. And if you want to find out more information on that, you can go ahead and read Designer and Dragons by Shannon Appelkline, which he goes into a lot of detail regarding that, especially in the a lot of the information provided by Tim Kask. So, anyways, all we can do is say it ain't so and let the content and the quality of the material in the magazine speak for itself in support of that assertion. On closer examination, the last sentence is rather cryptic. If RuneQuest got the coverage it deserves, in Mr. McKenzie's estimation, it stands to reason that even more people would buy the dragon. The only way we could lose money or anything else would be if we did devote a substantial amount of space to RuneQuest, and because of that, people stopped buying the magazine. Only one thing for sure, we can't lose money printing RuneQuest articles unless we have some RuneQuest articles to print. Is anybody out there getting the hint? From Kim. And let's see here. Kim Mohan, the assistant editor. Well, I got to say that was a very diplomatic way of essentially telling Mr. McKenzie that he's out of his freaking gourd. What are you thinking sending us this letter? And it's out of our hands, that we don't do anything for RuneQuest. So pick up your game and send us some information, and maybe we will promote it. So yes, definitely the response from a proficient writer there. All right, let's see here. One more. We'll just do one more here. Let's see. Hooray for kids. Let's see here. I would like to begin by saying that I really love the dragon. I've got all but 8 of the issues and hope to get them somehow as well. I'm writing this letter after receiving issue number 37, which I enjoyed immensely, especially the article on neutral dragons and also the Sorcerer's Scroll. It's wonderful to hear about all the new developments. I would like to say that realism in fantasy is achieved by internal tangency. If a world hangs together, the players will be able to suspend disbelief easily. Otherwise, no go, regardless of the system used. I'd have to agree with that. I also agree with Mr. Holsinger when he says that game reality and not objective reality is the important accomplishment in a good D&D game. Again, I'm fair. Secondly, I really applaud Mrs. Lori Tartaglio's letter. Sorry. I am 20 years old, and I am considered quite adult, in quotes. Yet when it comes to D&D, I enjoy running kids and teenagers in my campaigns as much, or maybe more, than I enjoy adults. I get that. I enjoy running games for my son and his friends as well, and I've run many a game for other kids of various ages, and yes, it's definitely a very refreshing approach to witness. Most of the kids I played with are quite mature, if they're treated honestly and in good taste. They don't try to overbear the DM so often as adults do. They really get into the spirit of the game, and they love every minute of it. I've also played in some dungeons written by teenagers and the kids and kids that were very interesting and well thought out. Excuse me. Further, I've never had one problem with kids being deliberately obnoxious. Whoa, okay, well, there we're going to have to disagree. Some adults, on the other hand, knowing that as a charismatic Christian, I do not approve of smoking, have deliberately vexed me with their tobacco. I do not object to them doing what they want with their bodies and their health, but I do ask them not to do it around me. Fair. Of course, most kids smart enough to play D&D are smart enough not to smoke anyways. Oh boy. Okay. Thirdly, as a spirit-filled Christian, okay, I do not believe that God minds the use of angels in D&D. All right. I too believe in the Bible, but I do not feel that God is so small-minded as to take offense at a harmless game. Very good attitude. There was no blasphemy in the article, Angels in D&D, the Dragon number 35. I suggest a reading of Matthew 22:35 through 40 and related scripture. As New Testament Christians, we are to interpret scripture from this perspective, not the perspective of legalism. Matthew 5:17. Lastly, I come very near to dropping my subscription when the Dragon merged with Little Wars. I am pleased that Dragon has remained a fantasy gaming magazine basically orientated toward D&D and other TSR products. I hope it remains so. Reynolds C. Jones, Petersburg, New York. Okay. So, following that, we have a nice full-color advertisement here for the World of Greyhawk. This was probably the portfolio, not the box set. That came with a couple softback inserts and a full... was it a full-page map, or was it in 2 parts? I don't remember. And carrying on, what do we have in here? Steps in production process. A first step in any process to choose the goal we achieve. Casting 815 is developed into a female druid. This is the best figure for a female druid that's in the market. Its nakedness is the only problem. This is covered below. All right. I really don't know what this is from, but it seems to be detailing the basics of trimming and altering and priming this particular miniature. Huh, interesting. There's really nothing else about it. All right, carrying on. So another chapter here. We have another chapter from Fantasy Smith's notebook. Work in process, the systematic way to make finished figures. Okay, so it's part of this article. I should read before making assumptions. Okay. So yeah, so as you can see here that there's quite a bit of detail in this particular article as far as painting and finishing your figures. Okay. So what do we have next? Good got you down. Try this for evil, the Anti-Paladin NPC. So this is 1980. So is this the first time we've seen an anti-paladin in D&D? I don't know. I would have to look that up. If you do know, go ahead and leave a comment, or shoot me a message on BlueSky, or Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called this week. So, by George Laking and Tim Mesford. Are your players in your campaign bored? Has smiting the enemies of God and mankind become a drag? Now add an element of surprise and unknown danger to your NPC encounter tables. Let the players meet an anti-paladin. Okay, so this is an NPC, as it says here. So this is not a player character, but this is an anti-paladin that they can confront. All right, so let's see here. Obviously, through your many adventures and campaigns, you as a Dungeon Master have already acquired these traits. Now you can exploit your talents without restraint as you watch your players, especially those paladins, try to deal with this non-player character. Recognizing an anti-paladin should be fairly easy for players. Perhaps it's a preference for black, a black horse, black armor, black sword, or his grim skull-shaped keep, rising in black basalt sky on some chilly windswept mountaintop. All right. Okay, so what do we have here? Going in, we've got anti-paladin characteristics, base number, 12, and then using a die roll to add to that. So, strength is per the D&D handbook, dexterity +4 on reaction acting, -5 defense adjustment, 3 attacks per round for a high-level anti-paladin, constitution +4 hit points per experience level. Charisma requires special treatment. True evil will either reveal itself in all its hideous ugliness or disguise itself behind a pleasant exterior. For this reason, anti-paladins tend to be either sinfully ugly, 4 or less charisma, or devilishly handsome, 17 or higher. All right, carrying on. So it goes into uses of poisons. He's got a thief's backstabbing ability, protection from good aura, laying on hands. Once a day, an anti-paladin may cause wounds in others or cure damage to himself. Interesting. Okay. This is nothing new, but this was back in 1980. This was. So it carries on page 50. All right. Up on a Soapbox by Douglas P. Bachman. The Problem of Morality in Fantasy. All right, so this is probably a rather in-depth article. Now, and just so you know, this particular, well, most Dragon issues you can find on the Anna archive. I'll put a link in the description if you want to go into details, because I'm not going to go through this word by word. This segment would probably be well over an hour if I did. But what does Douglas P. Bachman have to say, generally speaking? Larry DiTillo's article in the Dragon number 36. Painted Ladies and Potted Monks was quite thought-provoking. In that article, Mr. DiTillo raised some interesting questions which touch the deeper dimensions of role-playing. In short, he suggested that we are doing a bit more than playing when we are forming attitudes towards real life. It is the intention of this article to push beyond the conclusion of Mr. DiTillo's piece. If statements in this article give some rough handling, it is not out of contempt. Mr. DiTillo deserves our thanks and respect for his sensitivity to the effects his game was having on younger players, and for his attempt to respond to those effects in a responsible manner. The exchange between the DM and the Shy Paladin, which Mr. DiTillo relates, needs some examination. The Paladin asks if engaging in what appears to have been some gratuitous sexual titillation was or was not a violation of the character's alignment. The DM responded by saying that if he considered sex evil, it was, though in the DM's opinion, it wasn't. The DM responded on the level of right or wrong. It was about the appropriate response of a character. The question was, do paladins engage in such activities? The question was not, is it right or wrong? The question that was actually asked was straight out of Fairy. The DM's response was direct from Poughkeepsie. It is important to hear what is actually being asked as we play games. The rules of the game may be different than the rules of real life. Please permit a short digression here. Fairy or Elfland is a strange world. It is not familiar or comfortable to us. It is weird, awful, wonderful. Anything which comes directly out of real life is from Poughkeepsie. Poughkeepsie? Whatever. It is comfortable, familiar, plastic, ultimately trivial, and boring. The art of fantasy is not concerned with real-life evil or science or quickies or getting high. It is concerned with the profound mystery behind and within life, nature, and the human soul. Anytime you sense real life creeping into a fantasy game, you know that the Poughkeepsie factor is at work. So ends the digression. So what can we make of the answer to the Paladin's question? Was the answer adequate enough in real-life terms? I cannot see that it was. Is something right just because we think it is right? If Hitler feels that it is right for him to kill 6 million Jews, is that morally acceptable? Was the Inquisition right about the Pope because the Pope said it was? It seems to me that this kind of relativistic morality is untenable. My own suspicion is that people accept such relativity either because they have not given the matter sufficient thought or because they wish to avoid the moral claim or issue which is implicit in a given situation or decision. And Douglas Bachman goes on. So, yes, these kind of discussions were being had within the pages of Dragon or the Dragon and other magazines of the time and other zines and other periodicals. It wasn't all just fluff. People were having a lot of these hardcore discussions, the breakdowns and examinations of role playing, and as far as aspects of the real world seeping in, dealing with the moralistic aspects of it. Does your game reflect you as a real person if you're making these horrible decisions, or if you're making these righteous decisions? Does it necessarily mean you're a good person? So yeah, as many of these discussions continue on in various forms to this very day. So, and this was 1980. So many decades, this particular examination, argument, and discussion has been going on, and I gather will continue to go on as each generation picks up the torch of the hobby and carries it forward. All right. So we're just gonna read the little highlight here. If someone uses a fantasy game or novel as a soapbox or pulpit, that person has turned a form of art into a form of propaganda or pornography. Interesting. Okay, well, not going to dive too much deeper into that one. It's something that I'll go back and read in detail, and if you would like to read it, you can definitely pick up a PDF copy of this. All right, so we have, oh God, does that say Minion Legends? I can't read that script, but the Barbarian North and the Youth of Juliet Wolfhart. All right, so literate tribesmen, diverse in both language and traditions, the barbarians of the North remain a shadowy people in the eyes of civilized Minarians. Okay, so I was right. So this continues to go into the details of the barbarians of the North within here, describing looks like their battle array, a lot of the ornaments and the weapons that they were used by various tribes. So essentially, this is giving you, I guess, some lore information that you can utilize within your game. Juliet Wolfhart, I do not know who that is, but since or Julut, sorry, not Juliet, Julut Wolfhart, my best guess is they were an author. So I could be wrong, but anyways, so this goes into some detail, more storytelling, more lore provided for whatever this is. This may be an ongoing article that I'm not aware of. Then we have another advertisement here for Strategy and Fantasy World Centers for the Wargamer, Fantasy Gamer, and Miniaturist. Wow, they have quite a few. So you can find their stuff in a variety of stores throughout the U.S. Women Want Equality and Why Not? Points to Ponder by Kyle Gray. Actually, no, by various people. Okay, so by Gene Wells and Kim Mohan, and then onward by Kyle Gray. This carries on. So again, another lengthy article dealing with a discussion that again carries on to this day, depending on what information is being provided within here. And again, pointing out that that these discussions occurred decades ago and carry on and forward. So, but what are they? Since this is 1980, what are they pointing out here exclusively? So, all right. As other minorities have done throughout history, female players of D&D, AD&D, and other role-playing games are finding it necessary to cope with discrimination and prejudice as they seek the satisfaction and fulfillment they are entitled to receive from playing a role in an adventure game. Okay, so right off the bat, they're not talking about discrimination and prejudice getting into the game. They're talking about prejudice in playing a role, which, for those who are not aware, a lot of role-playing games, when dealing with statistics and abilities for women, a lot of them were capped out at a certain level because it was generally perceived that that women were of a lesser aspect to men within the fantasy role-playing world, and therefore those higher abilities were unattainable. It was a perspective back in the day, and those perspectives have changed, thankfully. But it's still a point of contention that is still discussed to this day. So. Some of the obstacles set in front of women players by the structure of the D&D game system itself, as well as barriers posed by male players with personal prejudices against women. Okay, so they're also talking about that. Essentially, what is called gatekeeping nowadays will weaken or disappear with the passage of time. I agree. In fact, many aspects which women players have had reason to be upset about in the past have improved. Again, true. And this is 1980. I mean, so the as far as the role-playing game hobby, this is what, 7 years old now? But it's also apparent from letters sent by women players around the country as contributions to this article that many instances of unfair and degrading treatment of women players and their characters remain to be corrected. In some circles of players, women are looked upon as mavericks when they try to join in the entertainment of a campaign along with men. Why? Is it because these women enjoy using their imagination, being creative, and expressing themselves through their characters? If so, then male players rightfully deserve to be described in the same way. Role-playing games are rising in popularity all the time. But even so, The total number of players of both sexes is still a very small fraction of the entire population. Are women mavericks because they only comprise roughly 10% of all D&D and AD&D players? If so, the description is unfair because women have not always been afforded the same opportunities to become exposed to the game. For example, the original edition of D&D stemmed from chainmail, a set of rules for use with fantasy miniatures. Chainmail is, by a general definition of the word, a war game, and women have never, as a group, been inclined towards these kinds of activities. Most female gamers or potential gamers can well appreciate the skill and enjoyment involved in moving figures around on a tabletop, but do not enjoy doing it themselves. Interesting. A related cause for women's lack of exposure to the game is the fact that, until quite recently, generally the only places D&D, AD&D, and other such games could be found was in hobby shops and specialty stores of that general type. Other merchandise in hobby shops includes model railroading supplies, ship and automobile models, and war games, as opposed to role-playing adventure games. None of these other products have been traditionally considered attractive to women. It is a safe assumption that, even in this day and age, most women who enter a hobby shop are there to buy something as a gift instead of their personal use. There's a chance that a woman will see something that interests her personally, such as a D&D game or the AD&D books, and that's how many females find out about role-playing. Many women are entering the ranks of players and DMs all the time, but D&D and AD&D remain primarily men's games, and most women who learn about the games are introduced to role-playing by their male friends. Interesting. Okay. And it goes on. So that's Gene Wells and Kim Mohan, and then I'll just read a little bit from Kyle Gray. As a female player of Dungeons & Dragons, Kylie, there is one thing that never fails to annoy me, the underestimation of the abilities of female fighters. At times I've found it necessary to assume the role of a male character because if I choose to be female, my strength would be limited by the game rules. Yep, as I mentioned. And thus my character would be generally less effective than a male. There are no compensations to the female for its limiting of strength, making it seem as though women warriors are being discriminated against. There are many literary and historical examples of female fighters, the most well-known being the Amazons, the Ethiopia, an ancient continuation of the Iliad, tales of Penthesileia, and the beautiful Amazon queen who stood up and fought Achilles, greatest of all the Argive warriors. Also, when Theseus carried off the Amazon Antiope, her sister, Orethelia, led an army of Amazon women into Attica. I got that one right. And it took the entire Athenian army 4 months to defeat them. And who could forget Camilla, the Volscian woman maiden of Virgil's Aeneid. So she killed many Trojans fighting with both arrows and battle axe and was easily one of the best warriors in the battle, male or female. The Greek and Roman mythos are not alone in containing stories of women warriors. Brunhild and Valkyries are major elements in the Germanic sagas and warriors in their own rights. The Celts had their war queens, and there are historical references of those women fighting right alongside their male counterparts. In fact, some sources say that women were the most vicious and warlike of the Celtic warriors. Even Christianity, which is responsible for most of the Western world myths of the inherent weaknesses of women, has Joan of Arc. All right, so she will carry on with her case as far as being opposed to limiting women characters as warriors. So again, these very deep discussions, these very philosophical and timely discussions, were being discussed back in 1980, again, as they are being still discussed to this day. So very poignant. All right, so proclaiming the arrival of the Lords of Alicia, fantasy campaign game with thousands of players, unique system of promotions, simultaneous movement by correspondence. All right, so this is an advertisement for a play-by-post game. Starting from scratch, Leomund's Tiny Hunt by Leonard Lakofka. Excuse me. So, you've made the decision to begin a campaign, but you don't know where to start. You have a lot of great ideas, ways to mix exciting monsters and spells with a few new things of your own creation. Still, you're unsure where to begin. Worst place is in the middle. You should start fresh. A new party is required. Do not try to take an existing map or existing group of characters that has moved from dungeon to dungeon into your new world. Your old party may have some medium level, if not more powerful characters, as well as many items, spells that would ruin a low-level dungeon. Designing a campaign means starting with low-level characters who are to be built up in the framework of the new world. Okay. So essentially, Leonard is going on. He's giving you several ways to start a new campaign utilizing AD&D. So, interesting take. And he carries on. So a lot of details here. Okay, so the campaign overview. Once the first adventure is designed, it's time to add a history and overview to your campaign. Now you can draw a map around the adventure site, showing towns and other features. Working your way out is better than handing the party a map of the world for the first campaign. Agreed. And again, this is a lot of things that are discussed, advice that is provided, and things that people just discover on their own and carry on and provide to other people. But this is sound advice that existed decades ago. Given a huge map, they will want to go somewhere you haven't even had a chance to consider as yet. Yep. By working your way from the inside out, you will have a much better grip on a history that makes sense and hangs together logically. Don't worry about other countries, islands, counties on the map until the home base for your first level group is well defined. As you begin to expand, you can let the party hear about other adventures that they may well be able to try in the future. Thus, they'll be able to choose when they will go as time passes, and you will be ready for them. All right, so carrying on, next time, try a Cleric by Tom Armstrong, which looks to be, this is a short story, I think. Is it? It looks like it might be. Okay. Of staves and strings and other things. Bows. Okay, so we have an article here by William Fawcett as he goes on to describe with the inclusion in D&D of the different capabilities of the various types of bows, a never-ending debate begins about which type is superior. The more mechanically inclined to maintain the superiority of the crossbow, while those of us raised on Robin Hood know the longbow wins every time. The reality is that no type of bow is superior in every way. Each has its strengths, weaknesses, which are tied closely to the tactics with which they are commonly employed. There are three types of bows divided by their components and construction into the general categories of self-bows, composite bows, and crossbows. So, if you're interested in the details and the history of these specific bows, this article is for you. All right, so we've got some monsters here. Well, not monsters, but Giants in the Earth, Classic Heroes from Fiction and Literature by Tom Moldvay. All right. Along with stats. So we have Bodvar, Bajarki. Oh, God. Sorry if I'm messing this up. So we've got, let's see here, Norway, so Norwegian sources. Okay, sources. Hrolf Kraki Saga, synthesized, from diverse sources and translated by Poul Anderson. Paperback Ballantine Books, Adult Fantasy Series. Okay, so these are from Norse mythology. And then Eagle Skallgrimson, Eagle Saga, translated by Herman Paulson and Paul Edwards. Sourcebook, Penguin Book. So Norse, and we've got, so Norse mythology here. What do we have here? So he's got chaotic neutral, 83 hit points, armor class 2, hit bonus plus 3, strength 1879, intelligence 17, 11 wisdom, 13 dexterity, 1805 constitution, and charisma of 9. Wow, okay. And along with a variety of spells here. All right. And we carry on to Sage Advice, where questions are asked and answers are provided. So let's just pick one here. Okay, here we go. Alignment question. These are always fun. If a ranger is hired to do a job, signs a contract, and then walks out on the agreement, is he in violation of his lawful good alignment? Answer. It's impossible to answer this question accurately. Alignment questions always are, because I don't know what the circumstances were behind his not fulfilling the agreement, or for him signing the contract in the first place. In fact, I don't even know what the agreement was. This is something that the DM of your game must decide, based upon the conditions of the agreement which was violated. Was it a fair arrangement? Was the ranger forced into signing it? If so, did he then try to manipulate events so that agreement would be impossible to fulfill? You can simply charge someone with violating his alignment. You can't simply charge someone with violating his alignment just because he failed to live up to an agreement. All right. If a character is killed by poison, does a neutralized poison spell have to be cast on the character before a successful resurrection is possible? Yeah, well, these are questions. No. The resurrection spell will take care of the poison if it is still in the body and still potent. Well, there you go. And then, let's see here. We have recently acquired a ring of regeneration. Our DM says if the character lost a limb before putting the ring on, the ring will not regenerate the lost limb. Is this true? Yes, it is. Yep, easy. Okay. All right, so, and then we have another advertisement here for a variety of miniatures. Good hits and bad misses. Carl Parlagreco. Oh, God. I'm bastardizing all these names. Critical hits and fumbles are probably two of the most controversial subject areas in D&D. Remember when critical hits and fumbles were controversial? The most common procedure is for 20 to represent a perfect hit, and a 1 is a perfect miss on a critical hit and fumble, respectively. This is an overly simplistic system, and this seems to be the main problem. The problem is less severe with 20s, a character's strength and dexterity bonuses, along with any magical help coming from swords and like, often combined to modify the roll or modify the die roll or above the magic score of 20. Okay, so I mean, they're saying here that if you roll a 20, regardless, not a natural 20, just a 20. Okay. So, but then he goes on to provide some random tables here. So edged weapons, depending what you roll, would shield destroyed, leg removed at the knee, leg removed at the hip. My God. Chest injuries, death in 2 to 8 turns. Woof. Excellent. Blunt weapons, hand struck, dexterity down, 1 to 5 points. My God. Critical effects versus animals, limb removed at body, hit probability -4. Fumble effects. Let's see. Slip. Roll dexterity or less on d20 or fall and stun for 1 to 4 rounds. Hit half damage. Hit double damage. Hit friend double damage. Helm slips. Roll dexterity or less to fix. Hit probability -8 until fixed. Wow. And then carrying on with snout struck. Hit probability -2 for 1 to 4 rounds. Head strike. I mean, immediate death from these. These are, wow. Yep, this is old school. That's for sure. Uniformity, conformity, or neither by, is this Kari or Carl? Carl Horak. Let's see here. What is he talking about? In the preface of the player's handbook, Gary Gygax points out that he has set himself up as the final arbiter of fantasy role-playing in the minds of the majority of D&D adventurers by authoring the Advanced D&D Project. Hoo boy! If you only knew what it's like today, yes. Mm-hmm. Since the publication of the Dungeon Master's Guide, my old chainmail and vintage Dungeons and Dragons have regulated to a dingy cardboard box in the storage shed. I will, if you don't want them, I'll take them if they're still out there. Someday, years from now, I will show them with the same pride that comes from bringing out my 1962 version of Tactics 2, my first war game. Several months ago, I came across a member of the minority that hadn't acknowledged Gary as a final arbiter. Oh boy. So, we're already 1980, and we already have the Cult of Gary. Nice. The campaign he ran was based on the original Spirit of Chainmail instead of the latest revisions. To say the least, the game was fresh and unorthodox. His foundation was the 3rd edition of Chainmail and his vague recollections of the 3-volume set of Dungeons and Dragons, which he never purchased. Most players of D&D lie somewhere between the extremes of Gygax as the last word, and Chainmail is good enough for me. But the contrast between the two poles raises some interesting questions. How much uniformity is required from campaign to campaign? When does uniformity become restrictive conformity? How fast and in what direction is the uniform system of D&D evolving? Wow. So, This sounds familiar. This sounds familiar. Yeah. The answer to the first question is deceptively simple. The minimum amount of uniformity required to make campaigns recognizable and playable to all is virtually nil. For me, it's just as easy and enjoyable playing antediluvian pseudo-chainmail D&D as playing state-of-the-art advanced D&D. Both were fantasy role-playing games, but they were from widely different universes. As long as the referee knows what's coming down, there's no confusion. The principal danger for a player steeped in tradition of D&D is making assumptions based on advanced D&D rules that may not hold in another game. The second question is not so easily answered. In fact, it probably has no correct answer. The continuum, variability, uniformity, conformity cannot be polarized into good or bad. As pointed out above, vast differences in game systems do not necessarily make campaigns unplayable or less enjoyable. On the other hand, extreme conformity does not doom a game either. The games of chess and Go enjoy great popularity despite rigorously structured rules. Successive campaigns run by the same referee have essentially identical foundations and rules, yet they are no less playable or entertaining. Gary Gygax may accept the credit and blame for the uniformity of the advanced D&D project, but ultimately the referees and players must decide what degree of uniformity is best for them. But ultimately the referees and players must decide what degree of uniformity is best for them. Yeah. Yep. There you go. And then he carries on. So I'm not going to go on, but once again, an ongoing debate in the social media drama of the hobby. All right, The Aliens from Beyond by Bryce Knorr. Seat yourself down, sweetheart, and take a load off those gams while I make us a drink. You'll need one because I'm going to give you the lowdown. And some of it ain't too pretty about the time I tangled with the aliens from beyond. All right. So, and it looks like it's another, is it another short story? Yes. Okay. What are the odds? By William Keeley. In the last 3 years, I've had approximately 220 characters in D&D. What? Never once have I rolled one with 18 strength. Well, I appreciate that honesty, William. I've always thought this odd until I did a little mathematics. These charts are what I came up with. This is the logical gamer. Column A tells you what your chances are getting the score of lower and the percentage of the populace with the score or lower. Column B, yada, 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 math. Yes, so there you go. There is your statistical way of, according to William, of getting a 18, which he never had in 3 years, rolling 220 characters, and rolling just straight down the line. So good for William for his honesty. Nice variety of ads here as we carry on. Bring your dragons to Gen Con and into the 4th annual Best Painted Dragon competition. The winner will receive the 24-karat gold-plated Dragon Tooth Best Painted Dragon trophy, a subscription to the Dragon magazine, and full-page color coverage in the future issue of the Dragon. So be there Sunday, August 24th at Gen Con 13. All right, the electronic eye, computer technology and terminology. So this here is, the map is still in here. Okay, so this is an adventure by Mark Harrow for Top Secret, which was, a spy role-playing game. And looks like it's dealing with, of the time, high-tech computer technology and terminology. Okay, and then it goes into the missed mission. So this is the adventure here. Oh, wow. So you would get these. There'd be these nice little, tear outs, games and adventures and things, and within the magazine, and they were a lot of fun. I am not pulling this out, but it's something to read. So, and then so computer technology and terminology here. So this is what he's talking about that may coincide with this adventure, but we've got, what is a CPU, short for a central processing unit, in effect the brains of the computer. A crash, a computer's reaction to certain types of incorrect programming. A crash can take the form of a non-responsive keyboard, memory erasure, ignoring commands, and other nasty reactions. Floppy disk, another way of storing unused programs. Much easier and faster to use than cassette, but it costs a lot more. Okay, so let's see. So as we see, kilobyte, a short way of describing the memory capacity of a computer. 1 kilobyte equals 1,024 bytes. And you see there's no M for megabyte. All right, so, and then we have this, like I said, this wonderful adventure. Very detailed. You got a lot. This is like a regular module. Bazaar of the Bazaar, Cloud Castles by Roger E. Moore. A few things in the realm of fantasy can inspire wonder like a castle nestled among the clouds, serene and peaceful perhaps, and commanding a view of the country below such as few people ever know. Such castles are usually inhabited by high-level clerics or magic users, cloud or storm giants, titans, silver or gold dragons, and other highly powerful beings. They are very rare and are created by a long and complicated process. So here Roger E. Moore breaks down the process of making a cloud castle. And then we have the Greenstone Amulet by the Venerable Ed Greenwood, creator of the Forgotten Realms. And other magical items. So the Mist of Rapture, Lariel's Storm Armor. You should be familiar with that name if you're familiar with Forgotten Realms. Keys of Círdan, the Machian Holy Symbol, and so on and so forth. So let's see what the Candle of Methven does by Richard Forstin. The magical candle, usable only by magic users of 5th level or higher. Wow. Glows with a green flame. When a magic user studies by the light of this candle, it will enable him to memorize 3 additional 1st level spells, 2 additional 2nd level spells, and 1 additional 3rd level spell. Wow. The candle lasts for 19 to 24 study periods, D6 plus 18, counting 1 period, 15 minutes, for memorization of 1 1st level spell, 2 periods, 30 minutes for 2nd level, and 3 periods, 45 minutes. I like that. Awesome. I'll have to take a look at these other ones. Then we have the convention schedule for 1980. This is July, so looking into the coming months, Empiricon in New York, NanCon in Houston, Texas, FringeCon in Phoenix, Arizona, Glass V in Canoga Park, California, Archon 4 over in, where are you? St. Louis, GogaCon 3 in Columbus, Ohio, International Space in Columbus, Ohio, MainCon, wonder where that's at, CWACon 80 in Rolling Meadows, Illinois, Bangor Area Wargamers Annual Convention, and Rockland, was that Minnesota? Or Maryland? Yeah. No, what is ME? Massachusetts, right? Nah, fuck it. Odyssey 80, public education people. Gen Con 13, and this was still in Lake Geneva. And any information here, sponsored and produced by TSR Hobbies at the University of Wisconsin Parkside, so on and so forth. Kaiser War Games for Strike in Loma Linda, California. PacificCon in San Jose, and RheinCon in West Germany. Oh, rides needed and offered. I'm going to Gen Con 80, and I need a ride from Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area and back. In exchange, I'll help pay for gasoline and tolls. Mark Insco. Oh, such innocent times. And then there's a ride offered. I'm going to Gen Con 80 from Burlington, Vermont. It can take 3 riders from Vermont or the 80 Onrax in exchange for help with gas and tolls. Interesting. Char Fortier, Burlington, Vermont. All right. Carrying on. Research in Imperium by Michael Crane. With the right combination of perseverance, expense, and luck, Imperium players can obtain additional useful skills through research. Huh. Excellent. I'll be honest, I don't know what Imperium is. And game reviews. So The Beast Lord by Yaquinto Games. The Intruder by Task Force Games. And these are highly in-depth, so I'm not going to go into them. Simulation Corner, Redmond and Roger on graphics and games. So this is the corner that usually dealt with computer games and whatnot. Let's see here if we can find some being referenced within here. Fire and Movement, and Panzerblitz, Operation Crusader, and so on. Now, mind you, I'm not familiar with these. In 1980, I was only 6 years old. Then we got City State of the World Emperor, approved for use with Dungeons & Dragons, the biggest city-state ever, the City State of the World Emperor, by Judges Guild, and you can get your copy for $12 whole. And then this is carrying on from the Anti-Paladin, dealing with poisons available by experience level, and into more details here, retainers and humans and otherwise. Oh my, wow. They really give you a lot of stuff to do with this Anti-Paladin. All right, so and this is carrying on from page 7, how to use the process from Fantasy Smith. Out on the limb from page 4, more letters to the editor. And then we've got, let us know, send us your information, blah, blah, blah. The insert for the dragon's bestiary, the ground squid. Ground squids are a horde form of mutation akin to sea squids, but developed by a mad wizard to be used on land. They are generally found in the most isolated and dire wilderness. However, they are sometimes encountered in dirt-flooded rooms, usually seated there to protect some vulnerable area. So what does he have? Number appearing 1 to 10. Armor class tentacles 3, and the maw is 10. Hit dice 4 to 10, plus 4 hit points per tentacle over 4. Number of attacks 5 to 10, damage per attack 1 to 2 per tentacle. Jeez, 4 to 32 per maw. Special defenses regenerates tentacle 2 hit points per round. Jesus Christ. No special magic resistance, low intelligence, neutral alignment. Let's see, size. Body 10 feet in diameter, tentacles 10 to 20 feet long. Interesting. And carries on. And then carrying on the second fantastic adventure of Reginald Rennup. And then we've got some cartoons here. Inert weapons. Tips to remember. A sunrise. An inflamed pancreas, a peacemaker, a Chinese rapier. Bolt action, semi-automatic, cut-fed, snub-nosed, twin-barreled shotgun. That looks cool. And then we have the, what is this? Okay, The Adventures of Phineas Fingers, Fred, Charlie, and Company. And then we have Wormy, which was an ongoing comic in Dragon for several years. And finally, we have a short page of the story of Jasmine. And then an advertisement on the back for, oh, this isn't the back, but Take the Fantasy Trip. So Melee and Wizard, the 2 box sets, which would lead you into Death Test and then into the Labyrinth. And you can still find those games to this very day. And whoops, what is this? Why is this upside down? Martian Metals, Get Serious, almost. Okay, so it's a joke. And then we have this. Is this right? Is this the correct back? I don't think this is for 1980. Yeah, I don't think Paranoia and the Rangers of the North and Moria, the Dwarven City was out in 1980. Could I be wrong on that? Anyways, well, feel free to correct me. There's no shortage of that. But there you go. Wow. Let's see here. What did this whole thing run? Time-wise. We are at just under an hour. Okay, so, yeah, this is not going to be an everyday segment because this takes a long time to go through some of these books. White Dwarf is infinitely smaller than Dragon. Dragon is a lot thicker than this, so there you go. That was Dragon number 39. As you can tell, quite a variety of information was provided, primarily focused, of course, on Dungeons and Dragons and AD&D. But this particular one had quite a few interesting articles to regarding certain issues and topics that existed back in 1980 and exist today in 2023. So yeah, definitely one I would recommend, getting yourself a copy of. I'll put a link in the Anna archive, but there you go. That was the first episode of It's Pronounced Zine, not Zine. Next time, I'm going to be looking at the oldest White Dwarf magazine that I have, so look forward to that. Also on my channel, more unboxings to come and more interviews coming soon as I get some free time from work to talk with my two guests coming up. They're both in the UK, so it's got to be done in the afternoon over here in California. And so I've been extremely busy during the day, so hopefully that will be coming soon. And thank you all. If you have made it to the end of this, I hope you found it interesting. I hope I didn't put you to sleep by going through this. And let me know. Let me know if this is something that you'd like to see more of. We'll find out as time goes on. Or, let me know if this was the most boring thing that you've ever watched or heard. I don't care. Either way, like I said, I do this channel for fun, for shits and giggles, and for my love of the hobby. So, my name is Scott. This has been orcusdorkus's RPG Shenanigans. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day.